Hello, audience. My name is Andrew Oral Alamar, and welcome to Rediscover Your Hidden Intuitive Gifts and Reconnect with Loved Ones Beyond the Veil. Today, we have an amazing guest. An amazing guest, would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hillis Pugh. I am a soul, mental, and energy facilitator. And what is that? It is literally, it's what it is. I assist people in clearing out old, stuck energy, trauma, shame, pain, guilt, anything that is hindering us from reaching our best and highest self and potential. And I use modalities such as Siri, Lemoyne, and Light, psychic mediumship, and Reiki energies to facilitate the energy that your soul is being called use to assist in the personal transformation and growth.
That's really awesome. So I want to ask you, like, what was the catalyst that got you into this? Like, what called you to understand that this was your path?
Nothing called me. No. As I reflect upon this story, how I really got started, it's not the traditional, sense. It's in the path of me following my passion. And my passion initially is poetry, being a artist, being a writer in that sense. And it was in that way where the reason why I started to write is to let people know they're not alone. Because, going through life, going through personal traumas and personal stories, you begin to think, am I the only one? Am I the only one? Then that thought registered. I'm like, well, if I'm the only one, maybe I can write this in some form of poetry and let other people know that they're not alone on their journey. And so it just kind of evolved from there into sharing stories of gratitude. And that evolved from there. It's like, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? And, psychic mediumship abilities, kicked in, went to school to hone my abilities. And then from there, just catapulted in me learning about the Syrian and Lemurian light energy. And so everything is layered. You start off with something small and simple, something that's attainable and reachable, something tangible. And then, with the pursuit of passion, if you will, it begins to just lead you down this unexpected journey that has all these twists and turns and spirals,
Hmm.
but that's the beauty of
I love that. I love that it was kind of a journey for you, and I love that you didn't. It was kind of this thing where you weren't really called to it. You just kind of fell into it in a sense.
it.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's with most people, we all can like fall into it. It's like we don't initially, do this. I don't think I've met anyone
mhm.
who intentionally wanted to be a psychic, intentionally wanted to be a healer. It's just kind of like, okay, well, this is what it is.
Yeah, same for me. I didn't want to do this at first. I didn't want to be a healer or a psychic, and I was really dead set on the fact that I don't know if I want to like help people. I think it came from like not knowing I could, but once I knew I could, I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I find fascinating about all of this, in my journey to this in this space, is that we often mislabel it as a gift when initially it's an ability. And those first waivers, the people before me and probably the people before them, people like Edgar Casey and such, and people before him. So like all of these first waivers, they had this task of showing the world what we could do as humans. And it's in that space of them showcasing that you see it, then you believe it, then into practice. And then it develops as a natural and innate ability as opposed to a gift. It's something that we naturally are able to tap into, with the telepathy and communication through mind and all these other facets about our energy because we're pure energy, just different aspects of energy, but that's all we are. And when we tap into this beautiful energy, the potential is limitless. And so anyone to this day that is still saying that being a psychic or communing with people who've crossed over with spirit is a gift, correction, it's an ability.
I love that. And I love that you put it that way because I think saying it that way also allows other people who are not only new to this, but who are kind of wanting to come into this and maybe like take this on as a business themselves, it kind of lets them know that they can do it too. That there is a way for them to learn, practice, and begin doing the work themselves. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I like that you kind of put it that way. So I want to ask you, how do you guide others into like rediscovering their intuitive gifts, and why is the journey important for spiritual growth?
Well, I mean, yes, that's part of what I do because in the process of letting go of the trauma, letting go of the shame, letting go of the guilt, it's all built in around that, of the lack of ability of tapping in. And sometimes, the only way some people can tap in is through the lower senses of anger or pain or trauma, anything like way that triggers that. And then it spirals into a space of fear, not knowing what it was, because that has happened to me. And when you understand how things kind of spiral and you shut things off or shut things down, and then when it triggers again, you have a better sense of what to do and how to deal with it. And the space of really how to rediscover that is by having someone guide you, whether if it's, someone like me, someone like you, or even spirit guided, because spirit guides you on these journeys of really understanding the space of who am I, what is this ability, what is this gift, what is happening to me, like the whole X-Men, learning their abilities for the first time. You go see somebody, it's like, oh, well, I know what this is. This is what's wrong. And so you just kind of have to go with it because well, what's most important, what I want people to understand, is that this is not a gift. This is an ability. Like everything else, it has to be honed. You have to practice. You have to train it like everything else. And you may not get everything, you won't get everything in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. You know, you learn and you hone it and then you keep practicing, keep honing it, and you focus on that one thing. Like me, I like to focus on many things. But you know, it's just whatever you feel the uh, magnetic pull to.
Mm, I love that. That makes sense because I think when I was first starting off my psychic journey, I kind of had a cheat code because I was born into it and I had the abilities already, but I didn't understand that I had to hone my abilities. I wasn't as accurate as I could have been, and I had to really build into them. I had to really like connect with my guides, learn how to connect with other people's guides, learn how to do all these things to make my connection much more deeper and accurate. I didn't realize that until way later on, until my psychic journey in business, as to why I wasn't the most accurate, and then I became super, super accurate. But yeah, I love that you kind of put that out there because I think when you have the abilities, I think everybody starts out with psychic abilities or psychic, yeah, I'll say psychic
Impressions.
abilities. Yeah, and I think like you said, you have to hone them. And I think I had to do that too because I thought when you start out, you have to be like super connected, you have to be the best, and you have to be super accurate. But that's not always it. You have to hone it. You have to practice.
Yeah, and I like that you say that because we put, as people who feel that this is a gift when it's not. We put this pressure on ourselves like, well, I have to be this, I have to be that, I have to be, you have to present yourself a certain way, especially if you are on the business side of it because of the accuracy and the the story that is being told to you the way and the interpretation of the message that you receive. And so you have to interpret that energy. And this is the a lot of the things that people may not understand is that everyone's process is different.
Yeah.
And it's in this process of the interpretation that we allow ourselves to be seen, to be heard, and to, hopefully begin to take some pressure off of ourselves because, people say that this is a very competitive uh, business or nature, but the only competition is you because we put pressure on ourselves
Mhm.
to be, this and to live up to certain expectations because we are quote unquote the selected few with a gift. Wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, we're the selected few that has honed our abilities.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. I love that you said that. Every time I hear somebody say, "Oh, we're the chosen," I'm always like, "What? Uh-uh."
No.
No. Okay, so I want to ask you next, what spiritual practices do you recommend for individuals who feel disconnected from their intuitive abilities?
Oh geez, there's so many. I mean, just meditation alone, there's probably like 100 ways you can meditate. Uh, probably 10,000 ways you can do breath work. I mean, there's so many ways that you can find find the path to connect to your practice, to connect to owning your abilities, this space of mastery. And for me, what I do whatever, and actually what works for me is meditation, sitting in quiet, sitting in silence, but also challenging that quiet with noise, having noise around me because you're not always going to be in a quiet place to access this information that you need to access. So you also have to challenge yourself by stepping into this space of noise and having a TV playing or a radio playing or just in a crowded space in a crowded room and just allowing yourself to sit and be quiet. Say, can I be quiet now? Can I receive what I need to receive in this space of chaos? Challenge yourself. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone who's watching this has their own meditation practice or whatever they need to do. And so continue with whatever makes you feel good,
Mhm.
but then take it to the next level and challenge yourself in the opposite setting.
I love that. I love that. I love that you kind of said sound because that's something I don't know. It seems difficult. I think it seems difficult, especially when you're in a state of meditation when you're supposed to be relaxed and focused, to have something that's distracting you.
Yeah, but you can also find that space and noise too, because one, like myself, and I think it's a little bit easier for people who are clairaudient
Mm.
because I can find different frequencies and different levels of noises in a space. And then if I choose to allow myself to relax, I focus on that one thing,
Mm.
you know, and yes, so you can focus your hearing
Mhm.
on that one thing. And when you focus on that one thing, you can allow yourself to relax and tune in, you know, to receive what you need to receive. And so, I mean, it's different for everybody.
That's true. All righty, I want to ask you next. Can you share how, sorry, can you share how tuning into your intuition can help not only in spiritual matters, but also everyday decision making?
Oh, geez, that's like a no-brainer. I mean, there's that thing that people call buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, And in the beginning of my journey, I think all of us have had this moment of, dang it, I should have listened to my intuition. Dang it, I should have listened.
Mhm.
And, it's that little voice. And sometimes that little voice that we hear in our head
Mhm.
is our voice. But it may not sound like our voice, or maybe like an octave different. It's like, oh, is that me talking? Or what am I hearing? What am I feeling?
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I want to say that when you have intuition, you have to number one trust what it is that your player is, whether if you are clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, you have to find out which one is your strongest. And then, and the most typical intuition is the feeling of the gut. Everyone has the butterflies in the gut. Something is good or something is bad. It doesn't matter. And so when we don't follow that guidance of yes, no, right, left, should I, will I, won't I,
Mhm.
you know, when we don't follow that, and then a day or two later, 3 days later, a month later, after it has passed, and the event happened, and you have that sinking feeling like I should have listened. Dang it, I should have
Mhm.
listened. And I mean, it could be as simple as making a purchase when something was on sale. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'll wait. I'll wait. And 2 weeks later, say, dang, I should have got it when it was on sale because now it's 3 times the price. And so you got to buy it because you need it. And so it's like these little things, or a book that you should read. It's like all these little tiny things that help to build the intuitive muscle. And so trust yourself and make the right decision in that time because there's a particular reason why it happens when it happens.
Yeah, that is true. You mentioned the clairs, and you mentioned like learning which one is the strongest. So is it possible that all of them are equally as strong?
No,
Okay.
no. Because for me personally, my strongest is my clairaudient.
Mhm.
So I hear spirits, and in recent years, I discovered that being clairaudient has also assisted my physical hearing is like my old grandma hearing. I can hear something like 2 rooms away. Say, what was that noise?
Mhm.
And so it's like sensitive that way. And so then once my clairaudience has kicked in, then my clairvoyance kicks in, then my clairgustus kicks in. It's like they all follow one after the other. And so they all have a role to play. It's
Mhm.
like, in the seven inner body chakras,
Mhm.
they all are supposed to be balanced, but they all are not balanced. So you find which one is your strongest. And for me, my throat chakra because of communication and how I speak and how I convey the message that needs to be heard. And then for others, it could be, the top three or be the boss or everyone is different. So once you find out which one is the more dominant one, and trust me, you'll know.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. And I think now that I'm hearing you say this, I'm like, which one is mine? Because I think mine is my clairsentience.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's important to say because I think a lot of us kind of have that misconception of like all of them are equally powerful. And I think if you feel that way, you feel that way. I'm not gonna take it from you, or them or whoever.
right.
But yeah, I think it's exactly right because when it happens the same for me. When one of them is ignited, the other ones follow very close behind and begin to give me things or give me more
Yeah,
information as things unfold within whatever session I'm doing with somebody. So it makes a lot of sense that one of them would be the strongest, but you'd be able to use them all in tandem with that strongest one.
right. Well, I shouldn't say strongest. I say let's interchange that with more dominant.
Yeah. Okay. I
The
like
more
that. Yeah.
dominant. Yeah, because there's always going to be that one that triggers everything. And yeah, and I will say that there's the potential for them to be equally strong, but without someone who has taken years to hone all their abilities and to focus on one individually. I mean, that just doesn't happen to someone in a matter of, 2, 3, or even 5 years. This is something that takes decades of training to really understand each individual Claire because with mine, like I said, it wasn't until just a couple of years ago, and I've been doing this for a while, that I
Mhm.
noticed the increase of my physical hearing.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And I noticed that too. Like again, as you're saying, I'm kind of like, yeah, I noticed that too when I'm sitting around or chilling or whatever, and I'm thinking about anything, and I'll just hear a spirit come up and say something, or I'll hear something far away that I shouldn't hear. Um, and I'll think like, where the hell did I come from? And I feel like you said earlier, like a Professor X or an X-Men or something. I'm like, I don't understand why I could have heard that like so far away. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, the abilities they do kind of enhance like your physical abilities as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just see the wheels turning. I like it.
Yeah, because it's like they really do not only enhance like your physical strengths, but they do kind of make your life a lot better when you're really in tune with them, when you really nurture and hone them. They make everything so much better. And I'm just kind of like thinking now about how everything is like happening, or when you're using your abilities, how everything kind of comes together, not just spiritually, but physically. So yeah, thank you for giving me that realization.
You're welcome.
But yeah, now I kind of want to switch gears towards like the veil and ancestral things. Um, so I want to ask you next, what does it mean to reconnect with loved ones beyond the veil? And how can someone recognize when that connection is authentic?
Wow. So, I'm going to, and the only way to really explain this is to share a personal story of mine. And those that have been following me for a while are aware of the story. And it was, wow, 9 years ago, approximately 9 years ago, when my mom transitioned. And we have made a whole plan for her to come visit me in New York, tickets, Airbnb, the whole nine, everything. So she was going to come and do plant medicine ceremony with me. So she was on her way, everything. And so she went on the family reunion cruise, which I didn't go on that year.
Mhm.
And when she came back, she had a heart attack, was in the hospital. I went to go see her. She was incoherent, everything. She was just like not there physically. Well, she was there physically, but not there mentally. And so after she made her transition,
Mhm.
I made a particular necklace for her that I gave to her. So when I went to go to the home to retrieve items and to clear out the house, I retrieved these items.
Mhm.
And when I was in ceremonial space,
Mhm.
I saw this bright pink light, and I'm like, that's her.
Oh, wow.
And so anytime when I feel, outside of me working on clients, when I see this bright pink light of energy, I know it's her. And so when spirit comes to visit, they can come to you in any form of way. They can come to you in a form as an apparition, as a ghost. And when I say ghost, spirit in the mind, not in the physical space,
Yeah.
where you can actually see their face, their image. But you have to understand that most spirits are formless.
Mhm.
They have no shape to them. And if they choose to take the shape, it's because they want you to recognize, want you to be familiar with them. They don't want to scare you in any kind of way. And so my mom understood this about me, so she didn't have to. She just knew I would know. And so she just comes to me as this beautiful putting light when I call upon it or whenever I just need it. I don't even have to call. She just knows.
I love that. That's a really gorgeous story, and I'm glad that you had that experience. Not the losing
Yeah,
your mother and things like that, but I'm glad that she could come back and connect with you and kind of let you know that this is her and that you can connect whenever you want to. I think that's super important. It's super important to not only understand that they don't always come in a physical sense, that sometimes they come in an energy, and I think that's what we are. But also that you could recognize it.
I mean, I think that's with any spirit, anyone who's close to you, any family relative or a best friend. You just know their energy when it's nearby.
Mm, that is so true. And thank you for sharing that story. I think that's absolutely beautiful. That's awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I wanted to say, sorry to cut you off. I wanted to say, what role did trust play in kind of opening yourself up to understanding that you could connect with spirits and not only with spirits, but with your mother regularly or whenever you need to?
Oh, geez. You know, and I guess I have to preface this by
Mhm.
another story, another experience I had because it really signifies to the energy of understanding what's around you, what's in your space, and having that trust. Because as a child, this ability wasn't particularly nurtured. It was just like, oh, okay, well, I can do that, but no anyone else can do it, and whatever.
Mhm.
But it wasn't, and actually, this is like a twofold story. It wasn't until I had a premonition of my grandmother passing, and
Oh,
so it wasn't until years later. I think it was maybe about approximately 3 years later where that premonition came to life. So that was the first thing that I learned to begin to trust what I feel, trust what I see. I'm like, okay, well, this is real. This has actually happened.
Hmm.
But what really played a role is when there was an incident in my apartment where I felt a spirit that I did not know. It was a very foreign energy to me. I'm like, what is this? What is this? And so it freaked me out
Hmm.
completely. Ran out of my apartment, walked down the street, and I'm like, what is this? And so obviously and at that time I felt there's definitely some updates happening. So this was in my late 20s, early 30s, somewhere around that time.
Hmm.
And I felt this energy. And as I walked down the street, I was walking past people and I heard their thoughts.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't want this. This is too much. I can't. I mean, literally, everyone that I walked past, I heard their most dominant thought. And
Hmm.
it was maybe about 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I'm walking to the grocery store. So just imagine walking down the street among all these people and in a grocery store to buy sage. At that time, I mean, and this is just me really, really understanding what it is that's happening. But I knew about sage. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I got it. This will help. And so, I was like, and so I didn't trust what it was because it was foreign to me. So that's when I inadvertently turned everything off because it was overload. It was too much. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until years later I went to learn about this and got proper training. And so trust is a big role because if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it lends itself to cutting off things inadvertently and, overloading certain energy systems in the body, meridian system, nervous system, chakras. It overloads. So goes kaput.
That's scary. I,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I think, well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, every experience it has a lesson. And so, it is what it is.
That's true. But I'm always wondering like what it was like to read somebody's mind. But then when you're talking about the experience you had, I'm like, that would be really scary to have after an experience that was kind of spiritually jarring and not only spiritually jarring, but physically jarring, where you had to like leave your own place and then to come out and have something that added to it. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Just imagine, I don't know if there's any Star Trek fans out there watching, but Star Trek Next Generation, Deanna Troy, Beta Z, Natural Mind Reader, there have been episodes where she overloaded her mind. It was too much. And so, I mean, with anyone, especially which is why I feel, telepathy isn't widely used because there's not a lot of trust. And people, when you have your most dominant thought, it's like, oh, well, why was that? Or why did you think that? And mind you, I have sent messages to some of my fellow peers over long distances. And so, I mean, when you have control over it, when you know what it is, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
yeah, that sounds like a really awesome ability, though. Scary, but
Yeah, no,
awesome.
I've sent messages to friends of mine who live in New York, people who live in Alabama, people who live on the West Coast, in California. I mean, and it's fun to do when you know how to do it. When you send these messages, I mean, it's like, yeah. And then I send it. Then just as confirmation, I send a text message. It's like, hey, did you get my message? It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I got it. I'm like, okay.
I love that.
Yeah, mental text messaging.
I love that a lot. That sounds really awesome. And I love that you kind of have that connection with them to be able to text and be like, hey, did you get my message?
Yeah, I mean, and it all comes down to rapport, that level of trust you have with somebody, because you just don't want to send some random person a mental message.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But I think it would be good like to send a random person a mental message and see if they get it. Like,
No, I mean, I wouldn't, as long as it's somebody you know,
mhm.
as long, I mean, if it's somebody outside your circle, don't do it.
Okay.
You might freak them out.
I want to ask you, is it something you can use beyond the veil? Like, is it something you can use with loved ones or
Oh
like
yeah.
dead loved ones, I'll say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I talked to my mom well, not as much as I did in the beginning, but yeah, I talked to my mom, my aunt. I talked to my family who's very close to me.
Mhm.
And it may be, once a week, it may be once a month, it may be whatever, or sometimes even if they have a message for me that's like, hey, we want to let you know, I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. So I mean, it's a two-way street when you're in that space, especially when take time to practice.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And when have you noticed like when you're connecting with the spirits, is it more telepathic or is it more like physical?
Everyone is different.
Mhm.
And for me, since my audience is the strongest, it's more telepathic, but I still hear spirit in my voice
Okay.
as opposed to because when you hear spirit in your own voice, the object and the purpose is to make spirit more comfortable, or not make spirit more comfortable. The purpose of spirit is to make you more comfortable with them. So the best way to do that is to use your own voice.
Mhm.
And when there's a level of comfort, there is an alteration or a pitch difference in the voice that I receive. Sometimes it may still be my own. Like for my mom, for instance,
Mhm.
I know it's her, and there's like a slightly different pitch
Mhm.
in my voice that I hear.
Mhm.
So, and one of the things that I do is when I'm working with male or female energy, is to say if it's a male, you know, talking my right ear. If it's a female, talking my left ear. So it's like, understanding, creating this protocol to know what's what. So you have that trust, with yourself, trust your spirit. So, you know, instead of just being willy nilly, I mean, because
Mhm.
you are the owner. This is your ability. This is what you do. And so you have to have these things in place to make sure boundaries are crossed because you're the one in charge because they have to come to you because they're talking to you.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so I want to ask you next about fear. How do you help people kind of overcome the fear of not only making a spiritual connection, but stepping into their intuitive powers?
Well, one, I'm the intermediary. I speak between them and spirits. I mean, that eliminates most of the fear when people come to me. But for the most part, for people who are tapping into this for themselves, I just let them know to create a safe space for yourself, whether it's in your bedroom, office, wherever. Just create this comforting environment, with candles or incense, whatever, it doesn't, and it necessarily doesn't have to be candles or incense. It can be whatever you want, as long as you feel comfortable in the space. Because a benevolent spirit or a loving spirit or a family member, they are not there to create any fear or discomfort. They are there to ease this communication.
Mhm,
And so they come into your space to help ease the tension that you
mhm,
have in this way of communication. This is why when most spirits show themselves, they mess with electronic devices because they know that one, it gets your attention, and two, it's not so jarring as, them sending a message to your ear, to your mind. It's like, hey, or you have this gut feeling it's them to have a safe space and for them to communicate.
mhm. Okay. Excuse me. I had to ask you that question just because I think, especially during this time, during Halloween, during when the veil is thinnest, but not only that time, but whenever you're connecting with anything beyond the veil, whenever you're connecting with your psychic abilities, I think I hear a lot about fear. I hear a lot about people being afraid of connecting with the wrong thing. Um,
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know how to connect with it the right way. People go off and read things on the internet, and don't get me wrong, I love the internet; it's very useful. But if you are unsure about how to do something, I mean, honestly, seek out a friend, seek out advice because there's a lot of potential that could come in. And we also have to make sure that our thoughts are clean, our thoughts are pure, especially when we have this time of connection.
Mhm.
Because when our thoughts, it's not just thoughts, it's consciousness, it's impulse, it's energy, it's intention. And when we couple that thought of intention with the emotional space, it makes the energy stronger. So if you have this thought of, I want to talk to a spirit, but over here saying, I'm afraid that I'm going to connect with the wrong thing, then of course that more dominant energy is going to be the signal. It's
Yeah.
going to be the one emitting that frequency. So
Mhm.
when you have the dominant thought of fear, it's like, oh, geez, what's going to happen now? Oh, geez, what's going to happen now? As opposed to, I'm going to talk to my mother. I'm going to talk to all my friends and family. I'm going to talk to my spirit guys. They're going to show me the way and they're going to love me and they're going to help me and guide me and be in that space of love and receptivity,
Mhm.
that space of appreciation, because that's the frequency of intention to bring forth what it is that you want to connect.
That makes sense. And it makes sense also like when I hear about people having experiences around this time, around Halloween time, around when the veil is thinnest, is intention. They never truly have the correct intention. They never really truly go in it with the intention of connecting only to spirits of good and light and joy and happiness. They always go in to be afraid or to play with things.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's what this time of year does. People want to, I wanted to say, but I don't want to say because I don't want to swear, but people want to mess, fuck around and find out, basically. Like, oh, well, what happens if I do this? Well, I mean, and get me wrong. I mean, Earth is a school, is a planet. Earth is the school of lessons. It's a teaching school. So I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, people want to fuck around and find out, then let them go ahead. But I beg you not, because if you are messing with something that you don't know with or understand, then you can invite the wrong things because there have been clients that I've known that had attachments to them, did not know they had attachments. And so there are these, and I don't want to say people have ill intentions. It's just because it's not done properly.
Yep.
Be curious and dabble in the unknown, but
Mhm.
make sure you do it properly, follow the protocol. So that way, you know, when
Mhm.
you're done. You close the energy, you close the gateway, you close the portal. You keep yourself in a safe space, you keep yourself in a bubble. You can be just an observer
Mhm.
of the energy, you can be an observer of the space and not actually have to go into the space. And so it's just proper ways to do things,
Mhm.
opposed to, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it. I'm like, I don't want to do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah,
people do mess around and find out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and sometimes, the outcome could be an amazing one or it could be a messed up one. So it just really depends on, do you really want to take that 50-50 chance?
No, it's not always the best thing to do. But yeah, I think now is like a really, really great time to connect, um, and to do it safely, to set up the boundaries you might have towards what feels the best for you as someone who is like wanting to connect, to make a really good connection.
Yeah,
And I think for people who are scared, who don't really know how to do things, I think, like you said, find someone who does so they can help you kind of get the best mindset moving forward to connect to the right energies.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Next, I want to ask you, how do you incorporate multidimensional energies, such as the guidance from Andromedan or Arcturian collectives?
So multidimensional energy is kind of a trick way or a trick question, if you will, because the space that we live on is multidimensional anyway. So we're living in multidimensions daily. It's just our level of awareness of it. And when we are in the spatial awareness of understanding the multidimensions or the layers, we begin to honor them in a different light. And I say that because during plant medicine, mushroom journeys, things like that, you are able to see the frequencies in a different and these frequencies, doorways and dimensional space planes, and how to draw upon the energy for them to be of some 50. But when you speak of Wyverns and Dromedans like Trillions, Syrians, so forth and so on, when you speak of species, you then open up that a whole different energy. That's more. It's not more dimensional energy. It's more of portal or density energy. And and this is one of the things that, and I know a lot of people has identified with in the beginning, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm Lyran. Oh yeah, I'm Arcturian. Oh yeah, I'm this, I'm that." Like, yeah, you know what? I'm all of that too. But doesn't really matter what you relate to as extraterrestrial species,
Mhm.
because right now you're in this human body
Mhm.
that has the potential to do greater things than even they can do. Just that you have these older species who's been around a lot longer, who are
Mhm.
able to do all these things. But just think how far we have come in such a short amount of time. We
Mhm.
have people, who are psychics. We have people who are regenerating their bodies, and we regenerate on a weekly, daily, monthly, yearly basis. And every 10 years, essentially, we get a new body,
Mhm.
but we can speed that up if we want, if we have proper eating and so forth and so on. But then in addition to that, there are people right now who practice telekinesis, and right now I'm learning about telekinesis. There are people
Mhm.
that do pyrokinesis, which set things on fire. There are
Mhm.
people who levitate. There are people who teleport short distances.
Mhm.
So really understand what we are fully capable of in this physical form takes time, practice, energy, dedication that most of the masters really doesn't haven't had. I mean, when you think of stuff like this, you think of masters such as Jesus,
Mhm.
you think of Buddha, you think of, and that's because they understood the cosmic sciences. And
Mhm.
when I speak of the cosmic sciences, I go back to the very first civilization of Mu or Lemuria, as some people call it,
Mhm.
where at this time they, understood the cosmic sciences, they understood the magnetic forces of the planet, they understood how to work with the energies of the world before their land sunk. And then Jesus went to Tibet for 12 years. 12 years to master everything that he did, everything from healing to walking on water, and not necessarily walking on water, but walking above water to manipulate the magnetic forces. So when you factor all that in, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna. So instead of us, going to kindergarten to eighth grade and in high school, hey, we should take those 12 years and put kids in that, give them the fundamentals so we can all be like Jesus. I mean, like, come on.
Thank you for explaining that more. And I love that you kind of went into Jesus, because I think a lot of people still believe that Jesus is like this, like God or something. And I think, like you, like kind of like how you're alluding to, is that God was more so just a human being who was very, very psychic, and not only that, very deeply connected.
And he studied, he understood the energies. So when you and this is what it all comes back to when you are in this practice of learning your abilities, honing your abilities, you have to study, you have to practice, you have to understand them. And so when you live in a world full of distractions, the time to study is like, yeah, okay, what am I going to learn? What am I going to study? I'd rather read this book, or I'd rather watch this TV, or I'd rather hang out with my friends, or I'd rather
Mhm.
than to focus. And so we all pick and choose our path. Sometimes distractions are a wonderful thing to have because if you study all the time,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, now what? What am I going to do? I'm going to go off and go play and do something else.
Mhm.
And so, whatever that is for you, be that, do that, because that's all a part of the process is having that balance.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, I love it. Thank you for sharing a little more deeply. I want to ask you about the Andromedans and Octorians and just aliens or alien beings in general. Do you feel like that could be considered innocence beyond the veil? I don't know.
I don't necessarily would say it's innocence or beyond the veil. I would honestly say that they're physically here, but how they can communicate with us is through that space. I mean, because when you have an advanced species, their technology is far more advanced.
Yeah.
Their way of communication is far more advanced. And actually, there was something that I read a while ago that described an Arcturian and I think it was a Syrian.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to go into how they physically look because that's not important. But what is important is some key physical factors about them being tall, slender, etc. That's well known. But what I found fascinating is how they talked about some of their facial features, such as their eyes. And so, what I want to talk about is more of their features and how one of the things that really stood out to me is when they talked about the size of their mouth. Because how we, as humans, we have big smiles and our mouths are larger, and big enough to put food in our mouths. And they talk about the size and how their mouth was maybe about half the size of a human's, and that's because they don't eat food. They don't eat a lot of food, and that's because they have advanced so much that the sun or other energy they use that as their source of nourishment. I'm like, that makes. And around the time, about a year and a half, maybe two, close to 2 years now, I did a special diet where I was not eating, no meat. I mean, it was a super serious plant-based diet. I mean, super serious. I mean, to the point to where certain spices or certain vegetables I couldn't eat, like onions or ginger or things like that. It was like super. And I was in addition to the medicines that I was taking, plants I was ingesting, I also was ingesting trace minerals, fulvic trace minerals, and uh, uh, human on with that's not the right word, the ormus, which is gold, liquid gold, basic, and
Mm.
monoatomic gold, and also in liquid as well. Like, well, heck, if if the interdimensional species pretty much used only had trace minerals in the body, then yeah, I mean, and at that time when I was, doing all of that,
Hmm.
there wasn't much desire for food. And I'm like, this is interesting. And one day I'm going to get back to doing that.
Hmm.
But sometimes we just enjoy food too. And I say all of that to say just, the space of communication is however we see fit. Because mind you, like spirit, they
Hmm.
want to make everything comfortable for us
Yeah.
because they're still in the space of the unknown. So when you're traversing the space of unknown. And if you meet a being, whether it's extraterrestrial or spirit, and their priority is not to bring comfort and ease, then you're the wrong.
Mm. Okay. I think that gives us a really good understanding of like what it's like to not only connect with interdimensional beings and spirits, um, but like what it might look like, might feel like.
Yeah, and so there are the blue beings, there are these beings, there's all sorts of beings. Everyone looks different.
Hmm.
But like I said, if there's not that feeling of comfort or love, you know, in that space, then space for
Hmm. Okay, so I have one more big question. Well, kind of big question for you. Um,
you.
I want to ask you now. I think you may have already answered this question, but I want to see if it's the same. So the question is, what is the most profound message you received from Beyond the Veil? And how has that experience shaped the way you helped others reconnect to their loved ones?
Oh my God, the most profound message.
Mm,
I don't even know what that could be right now. I mean, there have been so many. Um, but honestly, the message, honestly, that I feel right now in this moment is the message that I received when I started doing my work as a poet is
mm,
to let other people know they're not alone. Because we often feel that way when we are on our journey, whether we are kids or adolescents, and we feel that our parents don't understand us, or our parents may be ignoring us, or whatever this may be. That's how it started, from the level of being ignored or some level of abandonment.
mhm,
Know that there are other people out there listening and paying attention and watching,
mhm,
and that in itself is to let people know it's like, hey, I'm here if you need me. And
mhm,
if you are there, people will begin to, maybe drawn to that, maybe have themselves open to receive that help or to ask for help. Because
mhm,
when we feel we are not alone, there's so much potential there. There's so much growth and potential for community, for family, for whatever this holds for you, whatever it is that you are seeking in that space of of not being alone and being in a community, whatever this is, and I feel that that resonates also in the spirit space as well, because we as humans can be so arrogant
mhm,
to think that we're the only ones
mhm,
here. We're the only ones in this space. But and I'm sure most of you have heard us say, no, we are not the only ones in this space. There is inhabited by spirit, it's inhabited by energy, it's inhabited by many, many things.
mhm,
And this is why, we have our abilities, of our sixth sense, of our clairvoyance and our clairsentience to know and to feel, to understand that, wait, what was that? And then you begin to question. And after you question what you see or feel, you open yourself up to receive an answer. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think, if I hadn't answered that question with poetry, I don't think I would be what I am right now.
mm. I love that. So philosophical.
I mean, it all goes back to, and I think this is with everyone. Why do we do what we do? I mean, and most of us will often say, because I don't want anyone to feel alone. And I've asked other people similar things, and they say, well, because I don't want other people to feel like they're alone. And that speaks to the human condition of us living in a group, living as a collective, living in this space.
Mhm,
And so it's who we are. It's just
mhm.
our nature.
Yeah. Excuse me. And I love that that was your goal, is to make sure that someone else doesn't feel the same way you do or you did at the time. I think that's incredibly altruistic and important, because a lot of us still do feel alone. A lot of us still feel like we're the only ones. We're lost, or like no one else has similar experiences. But yeah, I think it's really awesome that you kind of are one of those people who like wants to show people that that's not true.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could say with me and a lot of fellow peers of mine, we made it a point to say, hey, you're not alone in this. I mean, granted, 20 years ago, or 20 plus years ago, when I started down this path of, writing my poetry and then sharing that and then dipping my toe into what I do now,
Hmm.
I mean, there wasn't as many outlets, there wasn't as many resources as there is now.
Hmm.
And so, for anyone who still feels truly alone, then ask yourself, why do I still feel alone in this space to where everything can have this amazing connection? When you
Yeah.
find out why you still feel that way, you can even come and ask me, why do I still feel alone?
Mm.
Somehow, some way, an answer will be given to you when you're ready to receive it.
Mhm. I love that. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome. I guess
Welcome.
I want want to ask you now if people would like to work with you, if people would like to seek you out to learn more about you, how can they do so?
Well, you can find me on any social media platform. You can DM me or you can go to my website. You send me an email, say, hey, I want to know more about you. And you can just go to hillispugh.com where you can go to my website or you can go to taplink.cc Hillis Pugh. There's all my social media, meditation videos, anything that you need to know all about me.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, and what was my last question? I had another one. I don't know why. I always the same two questions with every single person. I just lost it. Oh, okay. Okay, so if oh, there it is. Sorry, I went away again. Now it's back again. Okay, so um do you have a free gift or offer to share with the audience today?
Yes. So anyone who clicks on the subscription link gets a free copy of my book, which is 32 Seeds of Transformation. I like this because it was came to me in a dream
Mhm.
that